Welcome back to the Tribal Lines podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Lupo, and we are now joined by our co-host, Pat Johnson. He is here finally for an episode this season. Pat, how you doing?
Good, man. Been super busy, but I don't know if I can still own that title as a co-host. I appreciate you giving me that. Steven's taking the reins for the season as I've got some busy and some cool life things going on and happy to be here, happy to talk about a fun episode. Haven't really been able to share any of my thoughts this whole season, so super excited to get to it.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for hopping back on. And for Pat finally coming back on the podcast, I decided to wear his Fluorescene shirt.
Let's go.
So go out and check out Fluorescene on Spotify and
Do
all
it.
streaming platforms. Um, and we are also joined by another guest host, the one and only Johnny Stockton. Johnny, how
Boo!
you doing?
Boo!
Doing well. Thank you for the warm welcome. I really felt that deep in my bones. I actually am just here to comfort Pat's job as co-host because if he was a former co-host and this is his first time on the podcast this season, it's my first time on the podcast this season. So I feel like I'm one away from taking his title. So that's the whole reason I'm here. Hope to not sit in Steven's seat tonight. Otherwise, things could go bad for me. But otherwise, looking forward to talking about it all.
All right, awesome. I'm really excited to talk about this episode. This episode, not too much happened, but we did get Rome being extremely cocky, extremely confident in what plan was going to happen, but obviously it did not go that way. It kind of had like the Joker edit throughout the whole episode, especially starting the very first second of the episode with Rome being the one to say previously on Survivor, and then describing how he was doing a aggressive and chaotic gameplay. Um, I thought that was an interesting way to start it off. That was the first time they ever started previously on Survivor by someone actually in the cast. Also, the first time they let somebody got to sit in Jeff Probst's seat at Tribal Council. So definitely a historic episode for Rome on his way out after being probably the biggest villain of the new era. Debatably with Q, but definitely Q was a different kind of villain, I feel like, than Rome. Rome was crazy chaotic and crazy cocky, but it was definitely fun to watch in this season.
Well, yeah, I mean,
What are your guys' takes on Rome?
yeah, I mean, you got to tip your hat to the guy at the same time too. Like that's the game you all want to play, and then you remember there's a social and strategic element to the game, so you can't play that way, right? And if you play that way, it's gonna end for you the way that it ended for Roman. I'm actually shocked that it went this long, right? I mean, they lost two other tribe members originally on their red tribe before him. So, he was a chaotic piece, but at the same time, like he offered something fun. So I'm glad he stuck around for a little while. He was a player we haven't seen in a little while. And so, tip your hat to the guy. I kind of wish that he made the jury just because like I think that he'd be fun at Final Tribal Council. But other than that, that's my opinion on him.
Yeah, I think definitely one of the biggest characters of the new era. Probably one of the biggest characters in the last couple years, even like before that. Like I think we haven't seen someone really dominate a lot of the conversation of the season like Rome did. His first, 6, 7 episodes he was there. I think it takes of like I feel like Survivor fans really like the whole we don't know what's gonna happen. Like, oh, is it gonna be a blindside? But like it takes a very special type of person to create the kind of episode that Rome just got voted out in, where like you think of Chris Noble, you think of even like way back in Survivor Amazon, you got like Roger Sexton, you have these people that like going into the episode, they're basically telling us, hey, we're about to tell you the story of this one person's downfall because it's partially funny, but also they just completely upend themselves through the 45 minutes to an hour that we have to watch them. I think that a lot of the stuff that Rome did wasn't even that wrong, but because of the reputation he had going into the merge, a lot of the things that he did came off so poorly because there was no one to vouch for him. And he even said it at the start of the episode. He's like, all right, it's the merge. I got to sit still. I got to just, exist and get through these first few votes. And then I could start doing my stuff again. And it didn't take more than 12 hours for him to go back to his old ways, which ultimately at the end of the day, whether he was intentionally doing it or unintentionally doing it, I think a lot of it you could say before the pre-merge it was intentional, the way that Rome was playing the game. Like, oh, maybe he's playing for 50. Like, maybe he just wants the spotlight. Like, maybe he wants to be a big character. But I think we saw in this merge episode that a lot of it is probably him thinking that he was a genius and it ended up not going as well for him. I was one of the people that really thought that the stuff he was doing was intentional, mostly for camera time, potentially maybe to get on 50. But I think we saw this week that might not be the case. Incredible character, terrible player, but very added a lot to the season.
Yeah, yeah, he definitely did. Um, and yeah, you're right, Pat. He would have been awesome to be on the jury. I still am someone who thinks it's so wrong to have everyone be on the same beach together and have people not be on the jury. I feel like even though there's 18 people, they could totally do a 10-person jury instead of an 8-person jury, or they could have done like a tribe swap and then done the merge a little later. Those are the kind of seasons that I enjoy the most, especially with the fact that there's going to be another vote coming up next episode where someone still doesn't make the jury, which I don't know. I think it's wrong to have two people after you're on the same beach with each other making it to that point of the game not make the jury. They call this not the merge yet. You have to earn the merge, but it's literally we're about to talk about how it was 13 people voting, one person immune, 12 people vulnerable, all of them voting together. It's the merge. I don't know why we're calling it not the
Crazy,
merge. It's the
crazy
merge.
concept. It's a crazy concept.
It's a crazy, especially with the fact that,
Only one person is safe and everybody can vote. It's mind blowing.
right, and also the fact that when they officially start the merge, they do a double tribal council and they split up the tribes. Like they don't
That's what I have
even
a problem
the
with.
first merge vote isn't even all of them voting together, which it's just I don't get it.
Yeah, it's a good point. I don't quite understand it either. It seems to be the way that Jeff likes playing with like everything that he's never played with before and trying to expand on that and like build on that and like kind of like how we saw this like two leg challenge that we see in this episode. So there's a lot of different aspects to it. But for me, one thing that I want to talk about with this vote is usually when there's so many people voting and there's only one person safe, like you're gonna maybe see like a lot more names. And I think like Rome is one of the only people that could make it so like such a big target to where everybody out of all of those people just meeting each other too. It's not like Rome had like tons and tons of time to like bug the other two tribes. Like it only took like his messy gameplay to get him to that position. So it's kind of just interesting to see that there wasn't a lot more names that we saw, and that kind of leads to why the episode's all about him.
I
And see much.
actually
I also think a lot of it comes down as well to the fact that they are so scared to miss the jury. Like they know how close they are to
Yeah,
making the jury
mhm.
that now it's like everyone's dancing around like, okay, like what's the name gonna be? Like what's the name gonna be? So that way no one else has to do anything except hear a name and write it down. And it gets them one round closer. The thing, you know, these new era seasons they don't change, so like it's very some of these rounds get very predictable and repetitive, and it's very rare that something happens that makes it super spicy, and it's because the players are able to predict what production is going to do, which is why like Steven's saying how dare they not put people on the jury. Like what if they put Rome on the jury? Like what do you know, like it's not a foreign concept. Like they used to put the 13th placer on the jury in the old era seasons, which was like,
When
4
there
years.
would be like 20 people, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like even if they did that, like then the players might play this final 12 round in a oh shit, like things are about to change kind of way because they see something different. Even when they did the social hour or the splitting the two tribes into or splitting them into two teams, like that stuff doesn't even like throw the players for a loop. Like it really doesn't. Like they're not taken aback and they're not like, oh no, like I have to change how I'm doing things. Like a lot of them play very conservatively because they know exactly how the game is going to go. And that's why I feel like the end game for these last few seasons have been pretty good because people are like, okay, like now we know how things are going to go. Now we can start playing Survivor. But I'm sure all of them know, hey, I can't stick my neck out at the final 13 because they're probably going to break us up into two groups of six next week. And if I accidentally burn the bridge with the wrong people, I could see myself getting voted out next round, even if I'm in a power position with the main group of 12. Most people don't want to take that risk.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you about the whole like you just want to make the jury type thing. I think that a big reason why there were less names thrown out when there's 12 people now vulnerable compared to when there would be six in the original Mergatory is because there's only one person safe compared to six or seven people being safe. Because now with more half or more than half of the cast being safe, you're more willing to throw out other names to protect your allies that are not safe because you already have immunity. But the fact that only Kyle had immunity, everyone is trying to be safe. If they know that people don't like Rome, they're just like, all right, let's go with Rome. Kind of like what Rome said at Tribal Council. If you hear a plan, just be like, all right, that's going to be the plan. And unfortunately, he didn't realize he was talking about himself in that moment. He thought he was talking about when he would tell everyone, guys, the plan is Saul, we're voting Saul. But it turns out it was the plan's Rome, we're voting Rome, and that's what ended up really going down.
Yeah, and I do actually think that if the group of six that went to the sanctuary were all safe, we would probably see a little bit more of a spicy vote because a lot of those people might feel more inclined to protect Rome or more inclined to target someone else because they know it can't blow back on them. But I think there's a thing where people don't want to stick their neck out this early in the new era merge, and we've seen it a few times with some very exciting plays. But it actually surprises me here because the tribes are split so evenly. I think it was like 5-4-4 coming into this.
Hmm.
And you would like to think that there might be more people to protect. But again, you have such a controversial figure like Rome who has led all of the OG or red people,
Yeah.
lava to not want to protect him. Even Genevieve, who is supposed to be his number one, like what is she gonna stick her neck out for Rome, where she now has a whole game to rebuild if all these people look at Rome this very particular way. Um, but there's also like so many people that there's clearly a lot more going on behind the scenes, like a lot more that's going on in those first few days where a lot of people's not top priority is who's going home. A lot of people's top priority is probably how can I lock down these new relationships and set myself up for the next 3, 4, 5 tribal councils to try to get myself close to this end game.
Right. And speaking of which, how people are trying to pay attention to the relationship aspect more so. After they all technically were on the same beach now, there was a sign that said that there's an advantage hidden somewhere, a challenge advantage. And after only a few minutes of looking, practically everyone stopped looking to now try to get to know each other, like start making relationships, start strategizing, start socializing, stuff like that. And not many of them were continued looking for the advantage, which just shows how important these relationships are rather than getting an advantage, especially this early in the game. Now, let's say the advantage wasn't found the first day and now we're onto the second day of them being on the beach, I think everyone would have been out and about looking for that advantage. But just like how most people within the first few hours of just Survivor in general, day one, most people aren't going out and looking for an idol right away. They're trying to make relationships first. Then, if they think they have good relationships, then they go out and look for an idol. So I think that's kind of what happened with this, in addition to the fact that it wasn't hidden in any of the trees. So if it was hidden in one of the trees, I feel like somebody would have found it in the first few minutes, probably with 13 people looking. But because it wasn't, I think a lot of people just gave up. And that led to Genevieve realizing that the buoy probably was something, decided to go in and go get it. And she ends up getting the advantage.
Yeah, I also think there's like not much incentive for a lot of these people to want that target on their back of getting that advantage in the very first day of the merge. Like I think of a player like Teeny or Rachel or Caroline or Sue, like people that have no reason to have a target on their back of any kind at all. Like the last thing you really want is to go grab a chat like an advantage for a challenge for the final 13 round. Like if you really, and my philosophy with survivors, if you really don't think that you can survive that first round, then you might be losing already. Like needing to get that advantage versus actually wanting the advantage are two completely different things. I did like the way that Survivor did it, where they put it in the buoy, and I like that Sam was like, "Oh, maybe the buoy is always there." Like I'm not from the beach, but like, come on, like how many buoys in 47 seasons of Survivor have you seen floating in the middle of the water? at your beach. But I found it very interesting. I thought it was very fun. I thought it was a good for Genevieve for finding it. She seems to be really coming out as like this player that we're supposed to be rooting for, like someone that people keep saying is like a Parvati Shallow or a Kim Spradlin. People are like, oh, this is like now it's Genevieve's time. Like this is the person we're supposed to be rooting for. And this advantage might have been like a little kickstart to the start of her merge story.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Genevieve. I liked her from the very get-go. I think she has like definitely like the Kim, the Parvati vibes. I think I don't know, she's very interesting. I think she's got a lot of like good ways to build connections, and I don't really think she's as threatening as a Kim or a Parvati though at the same time, and I think that might be helpful
No.
for her, you know. But one thing I do want to say about that is with the advantage, I do like finding an advantage rather than a boring rock draw at 13 and then deciding two tribes. Like I do like that there was an advantage portion
Yeah.
attached to it. And I do like that it was in the water and it was something different. Honestly, like did they really just like not want to check, like just not want to get in the water? Because for me, I
Right.
was like, I
Some
wonder
of
if
them
they
probably
like,
did not.
well, like part of me is like, I wonder if like there was like a couple like out there and they made it seem like there was like only one and it was like, oh, there's like a couple buoys out there. Why would we even check? You know, like why would we even go? Like it's not gonna be on one of these
I
random
think
buoys.
that was just Sam being an idiot.
Yeah, I guess. But good for Genevieve.
Yeah.
Didn't
Yeah.
didn't work for her,
Why
but
did Genevieve not want to go in the water? Like how what is so bad about going in the water? She it seemed like
Honestly,
it was
I
the worst
I
thing in the
believe
world.
I think when you're standing with Sam, who comes off as a power player in the game, and Sam's like, I don't think that's anything. You don't want to be like, okay, let me go check, because then like the fragile man ego is gonna think like, oh, she doesn't really believe what I'm saying, and then he's gonna be wrong. So then already like that relationship
Well, no,
isn't.
I mean like when she was about to go in after she went back to go check on it, the entire walk over to like taking off her clothes and going to the ocean and everything, she was like, "Oh, I don't want to go in the water right now. I really don't want to get wet. It's gonna be nothing. I'm gonna be soaking wet, and this sucks."
Well, yeah,
Um,
but also like people will see that you like imagine. I think there's such a stipulation to like going out there getting wet, thinking it's something, and then it being nothing. Because then everyone's like, "Hey, like, why'd you go out there?" And then they're like, "Oh, maybe the next confessional is, oh, Genevieve's playing too hard. Like, she's looking everywhere for the advantages. Like, it's those kinds of things that like make you second guess yourself when you're on Survivor because you don't really want to do something that's going to stick your neck out there that early into the merge. These guys have known each other. I think." They must have merged on like I'm like the day they merged. They must have had tribal the next day. I think it
yeah,
was
yeah, they did. Yeah.
cycle. So like it's really like such a short period of time where like the it's so important to have the like first impression stuff and like anything you do that could impact a first impression could just like put you on the back foot for no reason. Like I remember in like Survivor 42 there were like all the players that were just like deemed as expendable and they all got screwed because they weren't included in this massive 8-person alliance. Like you never want to be that person. So like everyone is always trying very hard to not be in any situation where they can possibly be talked about at all.
I think she just didn't want to get super wet. Or
Maybe. I th- I
I
think
think she didn't want to get her
I feel
clothes
like
soaking wet.
maybe I'm thinking too much about it.
Yeah, but maybe you never know.
Maybe it's what she's thinking.
Yeah.
Um, but I also think one of the things about this episode that was like comical on Survivor's part, and also very unfortunate for the OG Blue tribe, especially Sue, is that they ended up doing this merge on the Blue camp, and people found Sue's murder scene
Yeah.
on the well, like right when they got there. And I have to imagine the Survivor producers were doing this intentionally, but everything, and she had like 3, 4, 5 days since she found the idol to actually dispose of the stuff that she used to find it. And it was all still there. The pots, the red paint, the nothing. Like, wouldn't you think you want to clean that up?
So,
thing.
what I'm thinking happened is I think because the episode 5, um, because nothing was really going on in the Blue Tribe, they didn't go to tribal council. They needed to show something from the Blue Tribe that they showed this whole idol fiasco with Sue. I think based on the fact that the people from the other tribes noticed the red paint around the water well before anybody on the Blue Tribe did, such as Tiana and Caroline. So I think that Sue found the idol either the day of the people going to her camp or the day before. I think that they just edited it to make it seem like it was a few days beforehand, but I think it was actually within 24 hours of them merging on their beach. Because if it was like 2 or 3 or 4 days prior, how did nobody on Blue notice the red paint already?
Well, I think they kind of noticed it, but they weren't as like astute to think that it could mean something. Like I think a lot of the people on Blue were kind of like, oh, like, well, even they were like at the water well, so had red stuff on her face, and like that would be huge red flags. And none of them, Tiana or Caroline, that saw Sue at the water well, had a confessional that was like, oh, like maybe she had something. Like they weren't even thinking like that.
Well, it's
That also
that's because they were only talking to Sue at the water well, and then they left the water well.
Yeah,
But
but if I saw someone had read anything on them and their excuse was a little botchy,
the excuse was pretty bad. Yeah.
I would probably think that there was something up. Didn't get a confessional from either of them believing that it was. I have to imagine neither of them thought it was anything. But I
Mhm.
think there were more observant players that were at the merge beach that, you know, saw the little red paint on the water well and immediately went into investigative mode. And they found something, but they can't seem to figure out who has it. And I don't think they're looking at Sue, at least right now. Maybe they are, and they're just not showing it. I mean, they have to imagine it's one of the five, and I feel like if I was looking at the five, I would probably not think it was Kyle. I would potentially consider it being one of the others. Sue could be a name. I don't know what to make of Sue. I really don't know what to make of Sue. I feel like everyone keeps saying like, "Oh, Sue is this winner contender. Like she has the best edgic. Like she like has these things." But like, I don't think she's showing these like displays of excellence that make me think I should be impressed with what she's doing. I think she has this energy where it's like, yes, mother, slay. Like that's like the kind of energy people feel with her, but I don't really think I've seen anything so far that really blows my mind. Um, what do you
I
guys think
I
about?
think they're editing her as someone who everyone is seeing as a below the radar player, but piece by piece, episode by episode, they put in just one comment by someone on their tribe saying that, oh, Sue is actually playing this game. Like Caroline saying, like, oh wow, Sue found this idol, Sue's playing this game. And then like Tiana, the episode before, saying like like Sue seems a little suspicious. It looks like she's up to something. And then it also shows her saying, "Oh, like I'm telling everyone I'm 45, but I'm actually 58."
Yeah, stuff like that.
It's giving a lot of like whenever there's not much going on with Blue, it's giving minor
Stuff
comments
about the
about
thing.
Sue being an under the radar player who's actually playing the game. So I
Yeah.
think that it's setting Sue up for someone who's going to make it far, but then be taken out as a threat later down the line, such as a Julie from 45. I think it could be like a Final Six, Final Five, Final Four boot who
I agree.
is a winner contender because she's the older woman who is underestimated but is actually a threat and then gets taken out. That's what I'm feeling is the edit so far. What do you think, Pat?
I got Sue on my team, so I see Sue as a winner contender. No,
Definitely a winner contender. Yeah, I
no,
think
I
so.
honestly do see Sue as I didn't know what to make of Sue either earlier on, right? Like early on in the game, like maybe like the first like two episodes, like I wasn't really sure. I knew that people wanted to work with her. I knew like Gabe had this thing with her. I knew Caroline. So like that's good. Sue's set up with some allies that want to protect her and that want to trust her. You have someone saying, I know exactly that you had the idol and telling the confession like in the confessional saying like, and I want to keep her secret. I think that they show us that for a reason. I think her idol's going to come to play in a big way. And I think you're absolutely right. I think she's going out at that four spot. Like, I think we're going to see her, like, be this under the radar player who's, like, really playing this game. She's probably, I honestly have a prediction that she's going to be the only blue, like, in that final four. Like, I think blue has a lot now, but I think they're going to go quick. And I do, like, I think Gabe's on a short leash. I think same with Kyle. And I think same with Tiana. Right. So I
Yeah, I
do
think
see a role.
Caroline's maybe the only person who could possibly be there with her.
Well, I think her and Sue are going to be this like powerful duo
Mhm.
that do make it like, to the final six together. And I think the idol comes out around there. So like
Yeah,
that's
I think that it could be just Sue and Kyle because of all of the the this that they're showing that Sue and Kyle have been having thus far in the season. That like Kyle has wanted to target Sue and Sue finds out about it, and then Sue confronts Kyle, and like they've had this cycle a few times now, and like it's the very early merge, and I feel like they're showing us how this relationship is building for a reason. And I feel like they could both be stuck in the middle to end game with each other there, and maybe not even with a lot of their other people. There's also five OG Blue left, which I believe is like the most of any of the tribes, and that eventually becomes a pretty big deal in the game, and it really does allow for all of those blues to potentially get picked off. And Sue could be one of the ones that sticks around the longest. Um, I don't see the winner quality in her. Maybe I'm missing it. I can't really see who the winner quality is. Like I feel like I find these flaws in like everybody that's left in the game. Like how the heck is this person gonna win? But there's like five or six of them that could. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I wanted to bring up the topic of Sue. I keep seeing it all over Twitter and everything. Like Sue's the winner contender. The Edgic gives her this percentage, and like she's gonna like whatever. I'm like, what does she do? Like, what has she done so far?
Yeah,
I
I
get it.
think
I
she's
see that.
just like set up in a good position right now,
Yeah.
and they keep giving little nuggets of information of like, oh, like she has things that she'll be able to say at the end, and she has some people realizing that she could be a bigger threat than she is right now. And so I think it's kind of like setting up her possible winner arc without showing major moves that she has done because she hasn't really done too many major moves other than save herself by voting out TK and blindsiding him, but that's also a pre-merge thing, and we know pre-merge doesn't really get much respect at Final Tribal. So right now she's just playing a good under the radar game. She has an idol. Nobody's really thinking about targeting her. People seem to be wanting to work with Caroline, and with Caroline comes Sue. So I think she's in a good spot right now. I also think it's going to be interesting how they handle Tiana because Tiana said it didn't say specifically in her confessional that she knows that Sue has an idol, but she highly suspects that Sue might have something because of this whole red paint thing. But based on the way she talked in her confessional, it doesn't seem like she's going to be telling people about this idol. I think it seems like Sue is more willing to turn on Tiana than Tiana is willing to turn on Sue, which unfortunately makes me think that Tiana is going to be a boot coming up in the next episode or two.
I think
Mhm.
she's. I actually think Tiana's next.
That last pre-juror.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
think so too.
I thought she was gonna go this week, but Rome really did himself in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I picked Tiana in my survivor pool. I figured like something was going to happen where it wasn't obviously going to be Tiana, especially the fact that it was so the blue tribe was so hard on Tiana being the vote um from Gabe like last episode before this episode. So I was like, oh, like I don't think the very next episode it's gonna be the same kind of thing where Gabe is directly going after Tiana. I think it's gonna be wait an episode and then it'll come back into play. So I risked it
Yeah,
and it was a good risk.
ballsy picked. Ballsy picked.
But very ballsy. Um, all right, so uh Kyle and Rome talking in the morning about who is the biggest threat, girl, guy, different relationships. Kyle is talking, but not giving away too much information, but definitely not giving away a lot, but too much to give away to Rome.
But it's crazy because
And
Kyle didn't even give stuff up in this conversation. Like it was really like Rome pitching the idea, Kyle being like, "Yeah, yeah, that makes sense," and then Rome being like, "You can't believe what Kyle said."
exactly, a lot of things that Kyle said that Rome was telling people Kyle said was definitely saying kind of like twisting his words a lot, except for the Sam comment. Obviously, the fact that he thought Sam is the biggest threat, that was 100% the truth that Rome said. But everything else was kind of like making it seem worse than what Kyle actually said. Um, and I feel like it was probably all going to work out well for Rome until he told Tiana which who was Tiana's closest ally was Kyle, and tells Tiana that Kyle's throwing her name out. That's put off alarm bells in her head. Like, there's no way Kyle actually said that because he's my closest ally. But like saying it to Sue, uh, Sue already didn't like Kyle, so that made sense. Saying it to Sam, Sam does think of himself as a big threat, so that probably makes sense. So it all seemed like it was going good for Rome until then, and then everything went to shit for Rome, and people started comparing notes, and that's where Kyle ended up being like, all right, my sole target until he's out is Rome. And he did not give in until Rome was out.
It's not even like the strategy was like super bad. It was more of just the execution of the strategy because
Yeah, exactly.
it was just poor execution on Rome's part because you have to know that everyone else is also going to compare notes. Like you have to know that like these tribes came together like 35 seconds ago. So like if you're already like planting all of these seeds, you have to plant like a seed at a time. You can't like plant like 100 seeds overnight and expect like at least one of those not to get back. And then when one gets out, so do all the rest. So that's just kind of how it goes. So I think like the strategy obviously is to like try to maybe twist and flip conversations here if you have to, right? To kind of seek out information or to give information, especially with people that you don't know. So all you have to do is like all you have is to talk about who you think and perception. Like that you have to go off perception. So if you spin the perception so heavily to where it's really just gonna make people kind of weary, like Tiana's like she's like, I trust my gut. We've seen in earlier episodes where she talks about Kyle being like a close ally of hers. So we all know Kyle's like this honest dumbass, like he called himself. I think that's what he called himself. If not, I'm
Hmm.
sorry, but I think that's what he called himself, and he kind of is. And
And he
that's
is,
and
yeah.
that and that's good. But you have to know like who you're planting these seeds on and what about, and you kind of have to make sure that you're not going to shoot yourself in the foot doing too
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I also think like having the conversation that they had is not the problem. Even going to Stu and what saying what Kyle said isn't even that much of a problem either if you want to build a bond with Stu. What's the problem is what I went back to earlier, which is all the stuff he did in the pre-merge and having someone that the second they hear what Rome is saying, they're gonna be like, nah, Rome's full of shit. And if you have
Yeah.
someone in the game that is going to say that about you, you have to number one have the self-awareness to know that someone is going to say that about you, which maybe that's where we're really stomping in here. Is I don't know if Rome had any self-awareness as much as he would like to say that he does. I don't really think anyone with all the self-awareness in the world would do all of the things that he did and genuinely think that he was getting away with them. But I don't think there's anything wrong with having the conversation, even putting words in Kyle's mouth. It's just when you got to know that there's someone like Saul or Teeny or someone that is going to say something bad about you, that is going to debunk everything you say to Sue or Tiana or Caroline about the stuff that Kyle said, because you need someone in the merge that's going to fact check you and someone that's going to back you up. And if you don't have that, you really got to sit on your hands and look for somebody new. And he did not do that. He could have built that with Kyle, but instead he's like, hey, I'm building this with Kyle, and then I'm gonna burn Kyle. Um, and I think that's part of what shot him in the foot. I mean, there's a million things that shot him in the foot. I think you know, no one should play like Rome unless you want to get invited back for 50, then play like
Yeah.
but you know, uh the conversation, telling Sue, none of that is bad. The stuff that's bad is doing it while knowing that you have someone that is probably going to throw you under the bus no matter what you say, and you should be a little bit more careful than that. And he wasn't careful. He threw all caution to the wind like he did the entire season, and it got him a swift, near unanimous boot. Near
Yeah,
you.
and I do think that it probably would have worked out a little better for him if he had just built that bond with Kyle. I thought that's what was going to happen. I thought when they showed that, it was showing like a Rome Kyle little bond, but then he just went and destroyed it. Um, I think that Rome uh, did make sense. Like if you are giving information to somebody, they're probably gonna wanna trust you more now that they're openly giving you information. But he should have been thinking that way for himself also. The fact that Kyle was so willing to give up this little bits and pieces of information to Rome, he should have been like, oh wow, Kyle is doing this, so Kyle probably trusts me. I should not betray his trust right now because this is could be a good relationship for me going forward. But he decides to take Kyle's approach and try to do it to multiple other people. And that's where I think, like you said, he went wrong.
Yep.
Um, So
Makes me wonder if he
let's
looked at like Kyle as like an easy social target. You
He
know?
also he might be. He really like I agree. I think if I went into a merge, I would see Kyle as someone that's a little easy to get out. If you're looking at the group, he doesn't come off that strategic or someone that's really willing to stand up for themselves or able to defend themselves well. And I always think those are people that easily get targeted early in the merge. I just think that he was even more of a target than Kyle was.
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. And Kyle winning this first immunity and already showing that he's a really good competitor in these tribe challenges. It seems like Kyle is this season's Hunter from last season. Someone who, looking at him immediately, you know he's going to be a good challenge competitor, but maybe not the biggest threat. And then he comes out and is amazing at everything that you put in front of him. And I can see him being in a couple of votes, maybe being the
You're talking about the
easy.
mayor of Ponderosa.
I don't think he's the mayor of Ponderosa.
I do. Honestly, I think the next three boots go Tiana, Kyle, Gabe. I honestly
Hmm.
think that.
I don't think that's possible, unfortunately.
Well,
Yeah, we don't want to spoil anything yet. We'll spoil it at the
Sorry,
end of the
sorry. No
episode so
spoilers. No
that
spoilers.
we'll spoil it at the end of the episode so that people watching, if they don't want to know of the tribes for
Next
next
week.
time, for
oh
next
right.
episode.
Yes, but
But
sorry for the spoiler. Skip forward 10 seconds. Ready? One, two.
yeah.
They're they're
But yeah, at the end of the
they're all
episode,
they're all in the
we'll let
same
you
group.
guys
So
at the end of the episode, we'll let you guys leave if you don't want to be spoiled, but we'll
Yeah,
be
but that's
talking
for one.
about
Yeah,
what we think is going
that's
to
for
happen.
no, I
Uh,
know it's for one round. It's for one round.
yeah, it's just for one round.
yeah.
I give you a 10-second warning, then you cut me off. If someone skipped ahead 10 seconds, they might have heard me say the spoiler. I hope you didn't get spoiled. If not, I'm very sorry. It's all Steven's fault.
Um, so yeah, let's get to this challenge. Um,
Let's.
so we are competing six versus six. The winning six is competing with Genevieve in individual immunity with the ball on the bow. I actually have that immunity challenge at my house. It's a lot
Yeah,
of
that's my
fun.
challenge.
The fun
That's
fact, Pat has won that challenge. In
yep.
a
Only challenge I've ever won.
yeah.
Oh my God, it is damn. Uh, but yeah, that's perfect that you're on for this episode.
That's right.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, we had the first new era schoolyard pick, and unfortunately, Mr. Jeff Probst and the producers did not want to show us this schoolyard pick, which I was actually really excited to see, but then we didn't get to see it.
Did
Luckily,
you see it?
I do know who picked who in the schoolyard pick, and I will let you guys know right now if you don't already know. So the two captains were Teeny and Tiana. First pick was Teeny, and Teeny selects Sam. Then Tiana picked Gabe. Then Sam picked Kyle. And then Gabe picked Saul. Then Kyle picked Rachel. Then Saul picked Caroline. Then Rachel picked Sierra. So at this point, the last three people to be picked are Rome, Sue, and Andy. How Rome and Andy are still available is wild. Um,
Really? I don't think
yeah.
it's I don't think it's wild at all. Have you seen them do a
I
challenge?
don't think it's like completely wild, but at the same time, like in terms they know it's going to be a grueling challenge. In terms of strength,
Andy
you
has
should
screwed
probably
up.
get
Andy has screwed up every single challenge he has done this season. Every single one. I love Andy. I really, he's a good friendly friend of mine, I guess you could say. He's literally blown every single opportunity he has. I think there's like you don't have to be athletic to be good at these things. You just have to like understand like coming up with the fastest way to do these things. And I just think he like doesn't have that dog in him.
mm,
Like especially with the tribal challenges. Like I just don't think he has that dog in him. I think he's got the chance to win an individual one, maybe somewhere here or there, because those are a little bit more slow, steady, balanced, focus. Like he's a big super fan, so like he cares a lot about that. But like the cutting the rope with the back blade of the knife, uh,
and
lo-
then we saw that meme of him.
losing the treasure chest in the first immunity challenge. He was the guy who went on a run by himself in the challenge that was pairs. I think it's around Asia went home. There were like two pairs, and then there was like a solo, and Andy was like, I'll be the solo guy. And I think he
Yeah.
was the last one to get there of the people that volunteered to be the solo guy. And then Rome has blown in terms of like communication and camaraderie, like a lot of these challenges. Like every challenge he's on, he insists on this specific strategy and it always fails. And it happened again here, which is even funnier that, he was so late pick of the draft, ended up being the guy to do the clutch part of the challenge and blew it again. This is like the third episode in a row he has
Yeah.
blown that part of the challenge.
It's ridiculous that they keep letting Rome do the main part of the challenge. I think Rome is honestly one of the better competitors for a team challenge when you're not doing the last part. I think for the first part where it's like a lot of physical, like running and doing things, I think Rome's one of the best on the season. I think he's probably the worst person to put at the end, and they keep putting him at the end, and that is what is the terrible decision in terms of Rome. That's why I think he should have been picked earlier. They should have just not let him do the most important part. Um, for Andy, I guess that makes sense. I mean, Andy, even with his strength, still screws up a lot of challenges, but he is probably the third strongest guy there. And he ends up
Yes.
getting picked dead last, which is definitely a little interesting. But I mean, obviously, they knew something I didn't, and you knew something I didn't too, because Andy and Rome's team ended up losing still. Um,
Observant.
but yeah, what happened after that was then Caroline picked Rome, and then Sierra picked Sue over Andy. Andy being the last pick, and by default gets picked by Rome and goes to that team. So that's how we got our teams. I wish we did get to see that in a little quicker, like quick fashion or something on the episode, but it is what it is.
No, no, no. What?
Then
I got it after the episode. I can't. As long as I get to see it, I can't complain. I do kind of wish that Teeny got to pick their whole team and Tiana got to pick her whole team. I think that would have been a lot more
me
uh
too.
fun. I feel like when it's like individual picking, it's kind of like okay, like what are we doing here?
Yeah.
But
I think for the individual picking, I think that's better for if you get to pick a tribe to vote with. But if
it's
you're
also
just pick,
better. It's better for drama because then people get mad at the captain for not picking them. But like, there's no one to be mad at here if like every person is making
exactly,
like
exactly.
it's like in the old days when you got to pick who went on reward with you. Now you just like compete in a group, and like if your group wins, you go on reward. But like it used to be so much more exciting when you used to pick who could go on reward with you. Even last season with the Applebee's reward, like that was peak cinema. And all
Yeah.
you need is just like that one little thing that I feel like Survivor has like dropped the ball on these very little things that make Survivor so much more exciting. Just put the decision in the people's hands so people could get angry for miscellaneous reasons. Like people are so meta nowadays that they don't get angry at other people for anything. They're just like, oh, it's cool. It's cool.
hmm
It's cool.
I
More
also think,
social politicking. More social politicking.
There should be more social politicking. I
yeah,
mean, they should just get more unhinged people to be on the show, but
yeah, seriously. I think that also in when I did see what the draft picks were uh for these teams, there was a confessional that obviously wasn't shown in the episode of Andy saying it's okay that I'm getting picked last. I want people to think I'm like what was it, like an injured bird needing to be nursed back to health, and then but I'm actually a snake who they're nursing back to health, and then I turn on them when the time is right or whatever. So that would have been such an awesome confessional to see in the episode. So I wonder the fact that that wasn't put in the episode, does that mean that he is not going to be this nurtured back to health snake that ends up taking people out later in the game? Is this meaning he's going to be out in the next few rounds?
honestly, I think when secret scenes are pulled from the show, it means that for the person. Like I think in the premiere there was a really big one of Kyle that was not on the show, but I think they took away the whole schoolyard pick. They didn't take away Andy's scene. They took away
Right.
this. So I don't know if I would really count that against Andy. I don't think that's going to be a reason as to why Andy can't win the season. I think there's a lot of reasons why Andy can win the season. But I do not think that that's a knock against Andy. I think it's just a knock against the 4-minute schoolyard pick that they could not fit into the episode.
Hmm.
But nothing super notable about the tribal challenge, right? Nothing that was really. You want to know what? I have my notable complaint, I'm a big complainer, I feel like I come on these things and I just complain
Hey,
about
complain. Let's do it.
Survivor nowadays. Why are we doing the mud again? This is now like the
No, seriously.
second time of the season we're doing the mud. We were watching the bow and ball part of the challenge, and I, who has spent a lot of time with Teeny in person, could not recognize Teeny
No, same.
with the mud all over their face. You can't identify who is who in some of these challenges if you're covering them in mud. And I get the let's birth them into Survivor with giving them the mud in the first episode. That's fine. That's fine. It's even actually less fine then because you really don't know who people are. But here, why? Why are we doing this? And then
Yeah.
they were tar and feathering them. They jumped in the mud, then they jumped in the mulch, then they jumped in the it was like, what are we, I thought that was a little unnecessary.
Yeah.
I just like to see the people that are playing so I can know who is who. It's like if you're watching like an NFL game and no one has numbers on their back, it's like how are we supposed to know who's who? And I feel the same way about that here.
They at least got rid of the giant boulder finally.
They did. And then Rome and Gabe botched the end of the challenge, which is genuinely no surprise. Rome in his exit interview is blaming Gabe for all of it, but I'm sorry if Rome is now blown 3 or 4 of those at the end of the challenge. I think you got to look yourself in the mirror and realize that you're the problem.
Yeah.
Imagine getting a wood chip in your eye.
That would be terrible.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah,
Even
that
the
was
mud, even the mud in your eye.
Well, you
Like,
got yeah,
That's why putting your buff on is like smart. But the thing is, they didn't have buffs.
yeah, I
fair.
think they put something over their faces. I feel like I saw maybe
I
they're
saw someone with a-
yeah. Some people were putting t-shirts over
Okay,
their
okay.
maybe. But it defeats the purpose. It really does. It defeats the purpose of watching the show because you don't even know who you're watching. And we didn't even see the schoolyard pick. How are we supposed to remember who's on which team?
Right. Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, but you're so right about the whole Teeny thing. I actually, when I saw Teeny have when it showed her in the challenge, I was like, wait, who's that? Who? I had no idea who it was. I was like,
Yeah, and there was one person I was like, I have no idea who that is. And then when Teeny finally dropped out of the challenge, Jeff was like, Teeny's out. I was like, that was Teeny?
That
Um,
was
yeah, so
really-
crazy. It's fine though. It's fine.
yeah, but Kyle wins individual immunity here.
Also, never ever ever did I think Teeny would make it that far in a challenge like that. So I would just want to give my little claps to my good friend.
Yeah, Teeny miss. I'm so drunk. I'm gonna need a buddy at tribal council.
Listen, Teeny is admittedly very bad at challenges. Like not great. So the fact that
they haven't been bad though. Like there's never been anything with the challenges this season that made them stand out
as someone I've seen Teeny do more challenges than the ones on the show. Teeny is not that great at them. But she makes
Hey,
it.
doing it where it counts.
Thankfully, Teeny does not need to be good at challenges to be one of the best players on the season. So I think it's fine.
Right, yeah, 100%. And yeah, I mean, we already have been hearing how much Johnny's talking about Teeny. Teeny actually did play in one of Johnny's Survivor games that he hosts and got 4th place, right?
How dare you not introduce me as like the host, founder, legend of competitive? Yeah. So I host a game called Competitive Events. It's a 1-day Survivor game, and Teeny played in my game before they went and played on Survivor. And Teeny was the Fallen Angel, 4th place final juror, 1 vote away from definitively winning the whole game. And it just came down to everyone knowing that they couldn't take Teeny to the end. And I am not even remotely surprised that things are going as well for Teeny as they are on the show right now. I do not think anyone has any reason or any need or any want to vote Teeny out at this point. Teeny is just such a genuinely likable person that there's just no reason. And she's not like the strategic mover and shaker. She's just extremely socially insulated in every situation that she could be in, at all times.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes her so great. And I'm very curious how that's going to play into an end game because I think when people have big moves on their belt, it makes people want to vote them out at 7-6-5. But I don't think Teeny's going to have that. Um, and I'm very curious what Teeny could do to stand out to actually win the game, which I also think is definitely a possibility. But at the moment, Teeny's doing everything that they need to do. So go Teeny.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's what I was saying about her in terms of like the definitely the beginning of the game and also all these times where Teeny is meeting other people for the first time, such as on the journey or now meeting everyone on the same beach. Teeny is used to playing these fast-paced survivor games where you need to be able to make quick, really good, tight relationships with people in order to stay safe because 1 or 2 hours after you start the game, you could be going to tribal council already. So the fact that we saw Teeny in literally every single alliance that there was, every single four-person alliance in the beginning of this game, having a close relationship now with Andy and Caroline with the whole amulet, being someone who seems to be driving with everybody in this merge group, it just shows that that is what she's best at doing, making these early, quick connections with people, and that is perfect for the game of Survivor. And then now it's all up to can she continue these relationships throughout the game now that you have days on days where you're just with them in between votes.
Yeah.
And she's doing a great job on that so far. She did get blindsided once, but that was because she was practically gone from strategy for more than half the time. And so she just had to, and she didn't have a vote. So I don't really blame that much on her not being able to keep her
It's honestly,
relationships. I
it's
also
honestly
blame it on,
better. It's honestly better for her game that she didn't come into the merge with a Keyshawn pair. It's great that
yeah,
Teeny
me too.
like
Yeah, I think so.
I'm the one that was left out of the vote. It's a great position to be in. Whether intentional or not doesn't really matter. It's just an incredible spot to come into a new era merge in. And then, the feast, we got some charcuterie. Sam tried some pineapple, meat and cheese. That would be my kind of merge feast personally. Give me like a few little, bites. I feel like if there were like cheeseburgers or steaks or something, like I would be throwing up the whole afternoon. Like I would overeat. I feel like that's not the kind of meal that you could overeat at. There's like bread, meat, cheese, fruit, a few little other things.
Yeah, that is
Seafood.
a good point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's
I
good.
would
Yeah,
pro
might
I
not
would
go right
100% if it
today.
was the stuff I really, really loved, I would definitely be throwing up afterwards. If you gave me any sort of like chicken, if you gave like chicken wings, if you gave like sandwiches, like I
You can eat it, destroy it.
hamburgers, I'd be cooked.
Now,
I
which
think
of the
I would have gotten drunk too, though.
yeah, yeah, I
Oh,
was
I
about
would have I would have gotten drunk
which of
probably.
the three of us, which of the three of us is most likely to just be absolutely trash for the rest of the day, like without even caring?
I
Dude, I don't think I would
mean,
have been
I
able to
already
get
played in a
it.
Survivor game where I drank a bottle of wine, so
I also was in a Survivor game where I drank a bottle of wine, and I actually at night I used it. They gave us on like night one, they gave us a bottle of wine as a reward for something that my tribe won, and we got 3 bottles of wine, and only 4 of us drank wine on the tribe, which I was blown away by. So I probably had a whole bottle to myself, and I pretended like I was drunker than I was, and I had to keep going to pee. But every time I went to pee, I was looking for idols. So
oh,
I
nice,
thought
nice.
that was very fun as well.
I
Okay.
think the feast would kind of be my downfall because I think in that moment I would just stare at a six pack and like sneak off and drink four of them, and then I'd get voted out.
And they'd be like, "Where'd all the beer go?" And they would know that it was Pat. They would know that it was Pat, but Pat would have
Beergate.
messed up. It's like that girl Julie that quit San Juan del Sur. Like she stole all the trail mix, and then Pat's like sneaking off at camp, drinking all the beer.
Yeah, dude, I'm like Hannah from 45. I'm just searching for a vape, just
I
as
hope,
just searching for nicotine because I've
I
got.
hope, I hope more people see alcohol on rewards in the future and try to be more like Teeny.
I agree. Makes it fun.
It
Mhm.
is fun. It's like people will remember that. Like it's just like people are
Yeah.
not doing things that are as memorable. Like I feel like I remember the people, but I do not remember the things that they did. And I think people will always remember that Teeny got drunk at the merch feast.
Yeah, definitely. Um, so at
Strategies.
this merge feast, we got everyone saying, yeah, it's gonna be Rome tonight, right? And then everyone's agreeing, but they have to, just in case, come up with a backup vote. Sue throws out Andy's name. Everyone, and it makes sense why Andy was thrown out because everyone else on yellow was there at the merge feast. Uh, which makes it kind of puts them in a tough position where, like, yes, they are working with Andy, but it's the only yellow that's not there. Blue kind of has majority-ish about within like the all the tribes, so they have the opportunity to like now say like, okay, like what about Andy? Kyle's safe. Um, so they just go along like, yeah, if it's Andy, it's Andy. Which I guess that makes sense because you can't really say like, oh, like I'd rather it be Rachel. Um, because Rachel's there. And if Rachel was not on in the at the merge feast, I feel like that could have been what they did.
But you want to know
Um,
what? It's honestly better for Andy. Like, I know Andy is going to be mad about this, and Andy deserves to be mad about it.
yeah.
And there's really no justifying Sam's decision to agree that it should be Andy. But it is genuinely better for Andy's game for Sam to agree that Andy should be the decoy than Sam be like, no, no, I don't think it should be Andy. Because last season, we saw Tim refuse for Mariah to be the name, and then Mariah ended up being the vote. And there's a very real chance here that if Sam was like, "Yo, I don't think Andy should be the decoy," like the vote could have turned to be Andy because they'd be scared that all the Gatas were sticking together. Now, unfortunately, Andy already just has little trust in anyone that he has spent the first portion of the game with, anyways, regardless of what he had to do to get out of that tribe and the relationship we think he has with Sam and Sierra. I think it'll be very short lived. But I do think that is probably like the best thing for Andy to happen to him there is that Sam was just like, yeah, Andy could be the decoy vote. And I also think it kind of builds up his story a little bit. Again, nothing you should be really happy about because if you're getting votes, like that's not a good thing. But it is kind of better for the story that is already building in Andy's favor.
I do think that yeah, Sam shouldn't have just said like, no, I don't want to do Andy, but I do think he should have said like, yeah, if it's Andy, it's Andy, like that, that, may, like I'd be okay with it, but also who would be the person you'd be okay with, Blue? So that at least there's another name out there from Blue that they're willing to throw out, and then there's a chance that maybe through a little more talk between the tribes, it ends up landing on whoever Blue said. So I don't think that would have been a bad thing to say, like, yeah, like Andy for us would be okay, but who would you be okay with, Blue? I think he maybe should have said that to at least show that, yes, he's okay with Andy going, but he obviously wants to still protect the people he's with. So he's not like definitely shutting it down. So I thought that would have been the best move. And I think not doing that could go back to bite him.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so when they get back to camp, there's little talks about the amulets, how they were all going to use the amulets together at the tribal council, get them out of the way. The fact that having them stay in the game, they don't want to have targets on their backs because the way they've seen it happen in the last two seasons is whoever has the amulets target each other so that they have the last amulet and therefore have a hidden immunity idol. This now getting it out of the game. Yes, now you don't have an idol that you could use, but the only way you would have been able to use the idol is if you survived getting targeted the next few rounds, and that's never good for your game. I don't think. Okay, well, we know Austin made it to the end, but like, I feel like usually the people who have the amulets don't
It's more of
necessarily
it's just
always
more of
get
a
to the end.
it's just more of a reason for people to target you. Like
Yeah, it's
that's
just
what it is.
exactly.
Because it's a target on your back from the other two people that have amulets if your relationships become dicey. And it makes you be the person that everyone should target because your amulet will become the most powerful or more powerful. Now, I don't think there's an issue with the amulets. Rome was like sitting in Jeff's chair telling Jeff, like, oh, the amulets suck, the amulets suck. I don't think the amulets suck. I think the mechanic in which the amulets are given out sucks. Because when you go on a journey, you have to tell your tribe what happened there. And if you get caught lying, then you're in trouble. So the fact that all three of them went on a journey, Andy, Caroline, and Teeny went on a journey, and they got the amulet, they had to go back. They couldn't fabricate a lie because that's putting a lot of trust into two people from two other tribes that are probably like, the secret's going to get out. So then everyone in the game knows about the amulets, and you gotta burn them because the implications of holding on to it are just so bad. Now we saw in Survivor 42 that holding on to the amulets like lasted for a long while, and they thought about doing stuff with them. I've hosted a competitive events game or two where people have held on to amulets for a very long time, and the amulets have come into use together. Like people have used them together. And I just think it depends how you give them out because the way that they were like the journeys are so predictable now that you can't get away with much. It's like that's why Rome had to play the idol and the steal a vote at back-to-back tribal councils because everyone knows he went on a journey. Most people know he got something. Once they know that he didn't lose his vote, it's going to be very clear that he does have an advantage because there were going to be 5 votes at the next tribal council that Rome went to.
Mhm.
So there's not really much they could do there. I wish there was some other way the amulets were given out because I do believe that Andy, Teeny, and Caroline are 3 of the most perfect players to get amulets because I think they would do stuff with them. But obviously, like when the show sets you up in a situation where everybody's going to know that you probably have something or your secret's going to get out, you really can't do much with the amulet. You just got to burn it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think an interesting way you could do with the amulet is kind of like the way they've done it in the past with the half idol, where
Mm.
like you have an idol, but you have to give away half to someone else, and then the only way you can use it is if you use it together. Um, I think that would be maybe a better way to use the amulet, but the
Yeah,
way
because it's
they'll
everything
make
at
the
that point.
rule, you can make the rule that you have to give it to one person on each tribe. So let's say you're the one to find it on blue. You have to give a third of the idol to somebody on red and a third of the idol to someone on yellow if you make it to the merge portion. That could be maybe a better way to do it than the way they do it
Just
now on
needs
the
to be
journey.
there just needs to be some unpredictable way of these advantages being handed out because the journeys like these advantages are not going anywhere. Like I cannot think of the last advantage that was found on a journey that was kept secret and made its way to
They
have
got to be hidden on the island too. I think they should hide one advantage and one idol on the island. I
or
think
like
and
at a
get rid of
challenge,
journeys
at a challenge
or
or
a
a
challenge
reward.
under the sit out bench. Bring that back.
If you send tribes to a place to go on a reward, you could hide stuff at rewards, and
Yep.
that's a way that you could actually put stuff into the game where it's decided by the players or the outcome of something. Because you can't just put a steal a vote on red; you'd have to put a steal a vote on red, yellow, and blue. But if you put a steal
Right.
a vote at the sit out bench, or you put it at the end of a challenge or somewhere in the challenge, like then it's a little bit more even. You have to think of those ways that you could slide these advantages and idols and secret things into the game in a way that's not journeys because the journeys are not working. I cannot think of a journey that has happened where advantages have been kept a secret and had an impact. I really can't think of one. If someone could think of one, I would love to know.
No,
Um
no, I think you're right. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Drew had a safety without power, but he told all his allies about it and he never had to use it. So
Yep.
um yeah. And that's the thing is like you have to tell your allies what happened. If they ever find out anywhere down the line that you lied to them, you lose their trust for the rest of the game. Um so it's tough. It's tough. I understand why they burned it. It's unfortunate because I do think all 3 of them are players that would have used them in a very exciting way, but you know, I don't play it on Teeny.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Idle play on Teeny. I mean, it makes sense why it was Teeny because Teeny gave up her vote to get these amulets.
Yeah.
Um, I didn't realize that they were going to do it on a Teeny until
Oh,
they did,
yeah,
and
that's
then I was
probably
like,
why
oh,
they did it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's definitely why. I thought it was going to be maybe Andy or something, but I don't know. But it makes sense why it's Teeny because of the whole vote scenario.
Yeah.
Um, and so when we get back to camp and it's not the Merge Feast, the other group, we have Rome trying to put a target on Saul's back, saying how Saul has been extremely mean to him, always yelling at him during challenges, making him feel like a little person, hurting his self-esteem. He starts crying. I love that. I love it. I love it so much. Rome
Reminded me
is
of
the
DK
best.
right there.
Just you're the one being so mean to Saul and you're pretending like he's mean to you. You're crying about it, like fake crying, and then saying like, "Oh yeah, I'm like I just said it to you to get people to think that I'm like
I
to
love
feel
it.
bad for me." Like I loved it. I thought that was hilarious.
Well, I think, yeah, I think Rome just like, I think people were easily like as time went on in the episode, you were seeing the others being not receptive and seeing it kind of just like go right through. Um, like you could see right through Rome. He says in these like I'm like a Rob has podcast guy, so like I was listening to some of that. He says like he wasn't even like totally blindsided. That dude was blindsided. I don't care what
Yeah.
anybody says. He was blindsided. He's bitter, and that's okay. This game is hard. And when you're so close to the merge, like I honestly think like going out like sixth, seventh boot is like the worst place to go. Because you're like you're so close, you feel like you're getting your footing. And for Rome, you feel like you're like on top of the world and you're just like pegged down like every notch possible. Um, so I think he reads what he sees, and that's just how it goes. And that's just Rome, man. Like that's gonna happen every time he plays Survivor.
Dude,
Like
his confessionals were so
but I
like
love him.
laying
I
in
want
like
to put that
he
out
was
there.
hanging out, like laying in like his own homemade chair. Like
That's
they
every confessional he's ever done, I think.
I know, but they were really fucking with him in the way
Yeah.
that they just made him feel like he was in charge and he just
I
was
think it's also really funny that if you really like listen to each of the confessionals that he says during that like era time, like right before tribal, you can uh listen to it in terms of what how he's saying it, and then also in terms of what actually happened with the vote. Like he was like, I can't believe that I'm able to convince all these people to vote my way. But you could also think of it as like, oh, like they're all voting his way, like voting him out. It was like
yeah.
that speaks volumes to my game. It's like, yeah, it does. It's a terrible game. So it's like stuff like that. Like throughout all of his confessionals, you can always like flip it like that. And I also thought that was very funny. I don't know if the producers specifically tried to do it like that, but
It's
it
Yeah.
always intentional.
yeah,
So Rome gets voted out. Everybody votes for him. They show us every confessional of Rome.
pretty much.
Everyone
Yeah.
voting for Rome, which is
My
really
favorite was Sam. Sam saying they said that Rome wasn't built in a day, but your game sure was destroyed in one.
yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
good one.
I
And
loved
then
Andy.
also,
German was really great. Or was it German?
oh yeah, what was that language that he was
I think it
using?
was Jim. I think it
I
was.
believe it was German, and it's because German. Gosh, I really don't want to come on here and be claiming that I know anything
I
about
thought it
history.
was Klingon, maybe.
What?
Huh?
Klingon. It's like a nerdy language.
I don't fucking know.
I think that's a
No,
language.
the Roman Empire was fallen by the Germanic tribes, so he used German because Germany took down the Roman.
Oh, okay.
That's why I thought he did it. I didn't want to say that, but I googled it, and it is in fact the case.
How did he know? Like, I guess he just speaks that.
Well, also Andy's a smart guy. Like Andy probably not only knew German but also knew that fact and was able to pull it out of his ass. Andy also probably he spends a lot of time thinking about what his voting confessional should be, which I really appreciate because I feel like a lot of players should do that. People that go into the voting booth and say stupid stuff like they're not thinking about it, it like kind of annoys me because you're also on there to make a TV show. But Andy's putting in a lot of the legwork to make that good content, so it's good.
It was
Sam,
also very badass of Andy to be at Tribal, be like, blindsiding Annika was fun as hell, dude.
Yeah, that was. I like his arc a lot. Like, I really do. Like, I was not an Andy truther early on. I know we have some mutuals, so like all love, respect. You're doing the thing. All of us.
Uh-huh, 100%.
So like love that. Um, but just as a podcast person, early on I was not super high on him. I found like him a little like just too theatrical, like with and just a little too over the top for me. But what I can say is that I think that he's doing a lot more things intentional than I thought. And maybe that's something he's just kind of like growing into and kind of just finding his footing slowly but surely. And I do think there's a world where he leans closer to like, and I would never be saying this like 5 episodes ago, where he leans closer to like winning archetype than like zero vote getter archetype.
Yeah.
I do think he
I
is leaning towards that like winner equity, which is good. Good for Andy.
I
Um,
think he's the
that,
close.
that
Sorry. I think he's the closest thing to David Wright since they've had David Wright. I feel like they try to build the person to be David Wright a lot. Like, I feel like they do it a lot. They're like, oh, this is the person. They could be the next David Wright. Like, I really believe that Andy is going to become the biggest threat in the game and the person that people have to take out. And his confessionals are very well just articulated in like the way that he thinks about the game, and like he knows it so well. Like you know that of all the people out there, he knows it better than anybody. And I think once he actually starts getting agency in the game, he will be one of the most lethal people out there. But you know, those first 3 days were the whole, oh, this guy's going to be a disaster. This guy's going to be, you know, this and that. But he didn't turn into that. He's turned out to be a pretty strategic guy. And even in the promo for next week, like he's confronting Saul, like, yo, like what happened? And like he's asked, like he asks Saul why he got votes in such a succinct way that Saul has to tell him the truth. And you see it in the promo for next week that Andy is like, yeah, but like if Rome played an idol, I would have gone home. Why were you okay voting for me? And Saul's like, well, Sam told us to. So he got the answer right away. And Andy, I feel like, knows those ways of communicating in Survivor that he will be able to pull information out of people. That I think there's a lot of signs that point to Andy being a force going down the stretch. And I'm very excited to watch it because I believe in the Andy. I believe in Andy a lot.
Mhm. It also would have been interesting if Rome did survive his vote for Sam, because he thought it was going to be Saul, so he voted for Sam. Then I think it's pretty obvious that everyone will know that Rome was the one who voted for Sam because there was no vote for Saul, and he obviously wasn't one of the votes for Andy.
Yeah.
So that won't really shake up the game. But if it was Saul who went home and Rome stayed in the game, that could have been interesting to see if Sam would have blown up or not over the fact that somebody voted for him, because we know Rome would not have said a word. So yeah, so that would have been interesting. But nothing is really going to come of that. They play the amulets on Teeny. First vote Sam, two votes for Andy, the rest for Rome. Rome is completely blindsided, but the person who seemed even more blindsided than Rome was Andy. And asks Sam if he was the backup plan. Sam says, I don't know. That's not a good response, especially with what we find out Saul ends up telling him that it was Sam. Um, this is definitely going to break some trust between Sam and Andy, and I'm interested to see what happens because of this. If Andy actually does maybe try to make a move, or if um, Andy just tries to stick with his yellow people for another vote.
Can we
Well,
talk about next week now? Are we allowed to break that barrier and try to jump into
yeah, let's just quickly go over the scenes from the next episode, and then we'll talk about the next episode, the two tribes split, and then at that point, if anybody wants to hop off of the video and not get any spoilers, feel free. If you want to stay on and hear our opinions of next episode, stay on and check it out.
Yeah, I have a question before we get to that because I feel like we could talk about this before, but Jeff did an interview this week where he said that there is a person from this season that he definitely thinks will be on Survivor 50. Do
Yeah.
you guys have any early guesses as to who you think it could be? Full disclosure, I do not think it's Rome. I do
I
not
love it.
actually think it's
I
Rome.
think Q would be the chaotic
No, 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 no,
villain
no,
over
no.
Rome.
Well, you could cast both of them.
I guess you could cast both of them,
But
and if you could cast both, I think he would. But
I
John
think
Noble.
you think stop, John Lovett.
I
You
think
think
it's
you
I
think it's
think it's
John
Gabe.
Lovett?
No,
No.
I think it's Gabe.
Really?
I think it's going to be Gabe. I think something crazy is going to happen with Gabe. I think he keeps saying twice already this season that he wants to be on the Mount Rushmore of Survivor. Why would you say put two confessionals of that if something big is not going to happen to maybe consider him for being on the Mount Rushmore of the new era? I think it'll be Gabe.
I have two I have two potential candidates, neither of which are any of the names you guys have said. The first person that I think he could be talking about is Andy. I think that the storyline with the melodrama meltdown in the premiere and then the rebound and all the stuff that we've seen thus far and the amount of longevity I think that we're gonna get from Andy, I think makes Andy a really solid contender for that pick. I think they're giving us a lot of him in a character way that like the people they got to put on 50, we need to be like clamoring for. And even though there's some people out there that probably are not the biggest Andy fans, I feel like people are kind of coming around on him like strategically and stuff. And I just think they're giving us more of him than anyone. And then the second person and also I think that they love the whole like I'm a super fan of this person, and now I'm on the all returnee season with them. Like Zeke was on Game Changers with all the big legends, and that was Zeke's whole storyline. And Adam Klein was on Winners at War, and they gave
Yeah.
Adam that storyline. I could very well see Andy getting that storyline. Like, I've been a fan of Survivor for 25 years. I'm out here with Parvati and Sir. Are you kidding me? Like that's the kind of stuff that we would get from Andy. And then I
Yeah.
think the other one that is very possible is Genevieve. I think that there is a lot of potential that Survivor is trying to build Genevieve into this thing where she's like a little Parvati-esque, Kim Spradlin-esque. I think if she goes on a deep run and does some lethal things like she kind of did in the pre-merge, like they gave a lot of build up for the. I don't think she's the winner of the season by any
I
stretch.
think she would have to win to get that season 50 spot.
Yeah, they make it seem in the article in the interview that it's someone like pretty obvious or like someone that people will absolutely love to see on 50.
Okay.
I
I mean,
see
it could.
Genevieve as being a great player, but I don't necessarily seeing Genevieve be a
Okay.
big enough the like person on the show, big enough contestant to like have people want her
I
on
was
50.
I
trying
think
very.
I think Jeff is so pissed that John Levitt was first boot.
I think so too, but I don't think he's
But
making
And
John.
also John
and
Lovett's
he
the
called
first
him
boot.
he
He's not
paid
putting. He's not putting first boot John Lovett on season 50.
No. I think on a return on just a season, maybe as like the only returning player, maybe.
he's a
Uh,
legend.
I'm not gonna lie. I'll be so transparent with the 8 people that are watching and the 3 of us right here. I genuinely think that the 2 names I wanted to say were Andy and Teeny, but I did not want to be extremely biased in this in the. But I did.
be biased. I don't care.
I think they're building Teeny up in this incredible way as well. Like everybody just adores Teeny. That I could see it. I really could. I also think they might need a few more like standout ladies in these next few seasons instead of like I think they have Q and Omer and Jonathan and Jesse and Jam Jam and like they have all those guys already. Like I think there's a lot of competition there, and I think Teeny has a solid shot. They might need a few more ladies of the because I can't the stint they got Shan,
You guys, Shan, yeah.
Carolyn.
They're gonna put Marianne maybe.
Mm.
Maybe,
Why
yeah.
not?
I feel like they like D more than Marianne.
Yeah,
I feel like they put Omer on before Marianne, but I could be wrong.
I
I just
hope so. I loved Omer.
yeah, and then I like none of the other. I can't really think of many others that really pop for me over the years. I think Carolyn,
Franny, maybe.
maybe, maybe. I think if Carolyn from 44 and Carson maybe from 44 or even Jam Jam from 44, I don't think
I feel
Franny is.
like I'm forgetting like a lot of big girl names. I don't
I
know why.
The only other ones I could think of, I mean, there's D, there's Julie from 45, but I don't think they'll put D and Julie. I think they're more inclined to put D than Marianne. They gave D that Jeff Probst podcast spot. They love D. I think they would give Marianne that spot maybe potentially, but like probably not. They're also probably very acutely aware of the amount of new era people that are very involved in Rob as a podcast, and they're probably not going to put a million of those people that are very intertwined with one another on the season. It's tough. It's tough. I think, besides Shannon and Carolyn, I can't think of any others. Uh,
So
pretty
yeah, I guess that does make sense for maybe there
Yeah.
being
So it could be Teeny. Could also that's why I said Genevieve is I think that they need like another different girl from the ones that they have already that are lined up. So we'll see. We're a year away from it. I think this time next year, we will probably have a very, very, very good idea of who is on 50. So either that's going to be the hypest time for the Survivor community. I'm very excited for next
Yeah, me too.
year. All right, that was my big question that I wanted to propose to the group.
Oh, cool. Yeah, no, it was a good question.
Thanks.
Um,
Thought of it myself.
love it. All right, so scenes from the next episode, we have Andy saying that if they're gonna come for him, he's got to get them out first. I think this is not pertaining to Yellow. I think this is um, something he probably says in a confessional directly after Tribal Council, before even the Soul conversation. So I think it's making it seem like he wants to get Yellow out. I think he still might end up wanting to get Yellow out, but I don't necessarily think it's going to happen next episode, but we'll talk about it. Then Teeny, Tiana, Sierra, and Rachel all say that they want to get a boy out. Of course, the All Girls Alliance that they want to have happen never ends up happening on Survivor. I don't see it happening with this cast.
I will say, of the games that Teeny has played, Teeny loves to take out the men. Loves to take out. So if there's one person I would give it could happen. Could be Teeny could pull it off. We'll
I
see.
was gonna
Yeah.
say, I feel like I don't know. I feel like it could happen.
I think it showed Teeny's confessional of Teeny saying we're going to eat all the men, probably specifically because she was probably one of the only people who actually had a confessional
Talking
talking
about it, yeah.
about like let's actually get out the men.
Yep, I
Um,
agree with you.
We'll
yeah.
see.
What were you saying, Pat?
I said we'll see. We'll see next
Yeah,
week.
yeah. We'll see. Rachel asks to hug Gabe, and then Gabe says these people are tools for me to use. Um, I think this is
The game
classic
body for
Gabe.
me, bro.
I think Gabe is probably going to play this next vote very well. I think that um, Gabe is, in this sense, probably going to try to align with Rachel, but we'll get into that soon. Um, and then Saul says, "No one knows what I'm about to pull." And this is public knowledge because if you're looking at the like description of what the next episode is, the description mentions that in this upcoming episode, a secret advantage changes up the game.
Oh,
So I think the no one knows what I'm about to pull. I think Saul finds the secret advantage. That's my prediction. I don't know if that's true, if they're trying to throw us off, but um the fact that it's put in the scenes for the next episode, and technically at this point, if somebody's watching it live, they don't know about the fact that there's going to be a secret advantage next episode. So I think it is trying to set up the fact that he might be the advantage getter. But
intriguing.
yeah.
Hmm.
All right. So if you don't want spoilers, log off now, but we're about to talk about next episode because we do know the two tribes.
Ooh, honestly, what if the secret advantage is like swapping people between those? Like you get to like if you like if wait, only one tribe's going to tribal, right?
No, no, no. Two,
No,
both.
both. It's a
Both,
double.
both, both go. Oh, I was gonna say maybe if it was like the one where it was like only one goes, then
Then you
like
could possibly swap someone out. Yeah, that would be an interesting one.
What if
Um,
it's like an idol nullifier where if you play it and you nullify an idol play, you get to inherit that idol?
that'd be crazy.
That would be crazy.
They would owe me a check.
That would be a
I,
really
I
good.
think it could be maybe. I mean, this is just completely random, but
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
it could be if you can correctly guess who someone is voting for, then you can change their vote, or you
Hmm.
can, or you like get an extra vote or something, or
Yeah.
like
Or
it
maybe
could be like a
nullify their vote. Another cool advantage could
nullify
be
their vote if they
maybe
if
you
you.
give someone like a fake idol making kit. Like that could be really cool too. So like, there's a lot of
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting options for this advantage. I don't know if it's going to be a clear and cut steal a vote because we've already had that this season, but we'll see. So the tribes for this double elimination is kind of crazy. Um, the tribes for this double elimination is kind of crazy how it got set up, and I think it is going to be some good tribal councils, to be honest. We have one tribe where we have
Pat
all.
doesn't know yet. Pat doesn't know
Yeah,
yet.
Pat doesn't know, right? So this is your first time hearing?
I know these tribes.
Oh, you do? Okay. You made it seem like you didn't know.
I forgot that I knew these tribes, but I
Okay,
remember.
okay.
Yes.
We have all five blue on a tribe with Rachel. And then we have three red and three yellow. We have Andy, Sam, and Sierra, and then Teeny, Saul, and Genevieve. So we got a three versus three, and then we have a 5v1 with a lot of distrust in this blue group. Um, I think the easiest vote would be Rachel, and just like with last season, with the fact that yellow had the majority and there was only Maria and Charlie on the outs, with Maria getting immunity, it was so obvious they should have voted out Charlie, and they did not. They turned on their own. I think the same thing is going to happen. I think Rachel will be safe. I think the whole Gabe hugging Rachel and saying these are tools for me to use, I think Gabe is going to uh, convince Rachel that, hey, like, I want to work with you. I'm going to keep you safe. I want you in on this plan to blindside Tiana. And I think Tiana is going to get the boot this episode. Um, I think if Tiana wins immunity, Kyle's getting the boot this episode. Um, and I think Gabe, Sue, and Caroline, no matter what, will be sticking solid together. So I think Kyle, Tiana, or Rachel will be going home. I think it'll be Kyle or Tiana, my guess being Tiana. What do you guys think?
I would say the same thing, honestly.
Wouldn't change a single thing.
Yeah, I
I do.
honestly think
Why,
that's what's
thank you
going to
guys.
happen.
I think it's going to be Tiana. I don't think she's going to win immunity, especially looking at what the challenge is. I think it's like the thing where they're holding a pole over their head with a statuette on the end.
Mhm.
Typically caters more towards like the Kyle Sue type of person. I think that one of them will probably win. Don't think Rachel's going anywhere. I think the trio is definitely going to pick up Rachel here. So I think that there's probably a higher chance of the vote being flipped on someone like Gabe than Rachel going home, to be honest with you. I think that I'd be dumbfounded if Rachel left.
I also think something to point out is Caroline said that one of the closest relationships she has on the other tribes is Rachel and Teeny. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and Rachel is on this tribe now. So if you want to make a move, why not pull in someone who is seeming like a sitting duck and use them as a vote when you already have that alliance with them or relationship with them that you formed early on at the social hour. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I think the Blues are going to scoop up Rachel here,
yeah,
and Rachel will not ever give Andy, Sam, or Sierra the time of day again. And I
yep,
think based on the other group, we are very likely to lose a yellow as well, I think.
yeah. I think that this could be a crazy tribal council where we do lose a yellow. Let's go over to them. So we have Andy, Sam, Sierra, Teeny, Saul, Genevieve. We talked about how the things that could possibly go down based on the scenes from the next episode, and some other clips that were posted online. We have Andy realizing that Sam was the one okay with him being the backup vote. We saw Sam say to him at Tribal Council, I don't know why, like when Andy asked, was I the backup vote? So now this is definitely going to shock him. Uh, I do see in some uh, videos Andy and Soul um, strategizing together, not only from them talking about the fact that Saul wrote his name down, but also seeing possibly some strategizing between each other when they are strategizing before the vote. So I think maybe they could be the swing votes on their side. So if the thing that nobody knows what Saul is going to pull is turning on their red, that could be a possibility. Or it could be the fact that Saul has this secret advantage. Also, if Saul doesn't have the secret advantage, who might have the secret advantage? What might they use for it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think the yellows are probably going to cannibalize on themselves a little bit here. I think that Saul throwing Sam under the bus is also probably going to get blown up at some point. That Sam is going to know that Saul threw Sam under the bus, and that could probably be a tift as well. I do think that Teeny is starting to build this sort of relationship a little bit with Andy as well. You just like keep seeing a few scenes of them together. That like I feel like there's going to be some conglomerate of Teeny, Genevieve, Andy kind of deciding who the vote's going to be here. Would not be surprised if this is the opportunity that people take to split up Sam and Sierra, but it could also be like a completely unpredictable move that we're not really sure. I really don't know what's going to happen with that group. I am most inclined to believe that they're going to try to break up Sam and Sierra, but it could also be like an easy Andy vote. It could be an easy like Saul vote. Like I think Genevieve and Teeny are the closest pair on red, and Sierra and Sam are the closest pair on yellow, which could mean that it would be easier to try to throw out Saul or Andy as the target. I'm just not really sure where it's going to land, but I do think that there's a lot of people that could go home from that group. I also get the impression, just based on who is in that group, that whoever gets voted out from that group will probably be the first member of the jury, and I think that the other group will probably have the last pre-merger, if I was just
I was just
predicting.
going to say the same thing. And I think Sam
Unless
connected.
Kyle wins immunity, because I feel like Kyle would be the last one standing. Because it's whoever's the last one standing, that group gets to make the jury.
We'll see.
Yeah. If Kyle wins, but if Kyle wins the first two immunities in a row, that's not really good, and I feel like he might have the wherewithal to know that that's not good. So, uh,
But Teeny's not winning this challenge.
yeah, no,
um,
Tini's not good at challengers. Not good.
Sierra's not winning this challenge, I don't think.
Sam
Um,
could.
Probably not, but Sierra's
Andy's not winning this challenge.
Sam could.
Soul is probably not winning this challenge. So I think it'll be Sam or Genevieve probably. I just don't think that they're either one of them are going to be the last person left standing. So I feel like whoever gets voted out of that group might not even make the jury.
I'm telling you, it's
Um,
Tiana, then it's Sam.
but yeah,
I think
I
I think
think that I
Tiana's
think
gonna
they're
show
setting
up.
up the edit to be Tiana not making the jury, but uh,
I could also see the edit where Kyle doesn't make jury. Like I could very easily see either of them not making jury. The only person that I could really see getting voted out from the other group that like would not be on jury is maybe Sierra, maybe Saul, maybe. But I think all the others have really been built up in this way that like they will probably make the jury.
yeah. So what is your official prediction on what you think is going to happen in this three versus three tribal? And do you think the advantage is in this tribal council? Um, and
I don't think
will it
the
affect
advantage is.
it?
I don't listen. I don't think the advantage is going to come into play. I think it's all fluff. I think they're putting in the promo. Whatever Saul is whipping out, I'm sure it's not advantage related. And if it is, I'm sure it might not have an impact. I am leaning towards believing that the boot is going to be Saul or Sam. I'm leaning towards Saul because still have this like glimpse that Sam could win the season. And I also think that like Teeny's vibing with Sam a little bit. Like, I don't know how many scenes you're really getting of Saul vibing with other people. I also think that we're about to see a little Saul versus Sam action here because of this blow up after Tribal. I think it's much more going to fall on Saul and Sam more than it would fall on Andy. So that's kind of where I think it's going. Yeah, yeah.
And also the fact that I think in this next episode, it's going to focus more on the Saul and Andy conversation regarding uh him voting for Andy and not Andy talking to Sue because Sue also voted for Andy. And I think this is only because they both end up on the same tribe together. If Sue was on the tribe and not Saul, I think they would have shown a conversation maybe with Sue, um, because obviously then that would somewhat come into play in this episode. Um, but yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be that because of this honesty that Andy decides to work with Saul, or if they end up maybe targeting each other. Um, I don't know. I'm definitely interested to see what's gonna happen with Andy and Sam. That's if they can somehow work together to get a red out and maybe one of them have this advantage, then that would be interesting. If Saul does not have the advantage, then I think that him saying they don't know what's about to happen is Saul turning on Genevieve or Teeny because probably Genevieve, not and probably not Teeny, because Teeny did not mention to Saul about the amulet, so that's already a little trust taken away. But I think that the thing that probably is still in the back of Saul's head is Rome told him that Genevieve does not want to work long term with Saul. Um, and I think that that might be believable, even though he knows that Rome keeps making up stuff. I think it could still be in the back of Saul's head, and he might want to turn on Genevieve. Um, so I could see Genevieve being a boot possibly if Saul decides to turn on his own to protect himself. Um, but and then for Andy, I feel like it makes the most sense to go after Sierra, but I don't know. Like he might be so annoyed at Sam that he might try to target Sam. So a lot of this I feel like has to do with who has immunity.
I think
Because if in this whole fact that somebody is winning immunity in this 3 versus 3, if they go to if they tie it 3 votes to 3 votes, the only 3 people are going to rocks. And so
there's no way this tribal's going. You're
I
more
don't I
likely
don't think so either,
you're
but
more
if it
likely to get the other tribal to go to rocks than this one.
but that's the thing. So think about this. If let's say for example the three on each tribe want to stick together and Sam wins immunity. Okay. Now, if they were to go to rocks, then the red tribe has a higher chance of going home from rocks than the yellow tribe. So maybe this results in a red tribe member flipping on a red tribe member, and vice versa. If a red person wins immunity, maybe yellow will be more willing to
Really,
flip.
I'm telling Steven, I do not think there is a single universe where Andy is going to give the impression where he is okay going to rocks. He is probably going to play the middle in this situation. Like I think you will not even hear the word rocks in the episode. I don't even think it's a possibility. I don't think the word will be uttered. If it is, I'll bet you $10 that the word rocks does not come up.
All right, deal.
At that tribal council, at the red yellow one. The blue one, it might be possible. And only
The
for like
blue one, you might be possible.
I don't know, man. It's probably more possible than the other one. Andy
And
and T,
are you talking about just at tribal council or just within the strategy?
dude, it's in the episode.
In the episode.
I don't
I'll
think
bet you that $10, 100%. I bet you Rocks gets talked about.
okay. I don't think Andy or Teeny or Genevieve would go to Rocks in any way. I don't think Saul would. None of the Reds have enough trust built and established that they would go
I
to
don't
Rocks.
think so either, and that's why I think a yellow or a red will flip on their own because they don't want to go to Rocks.
Totally. I don't
Yeah,
think Rocks will even be mentioned.
right.
Speaking of little bets that we have going on, Steven and I are in a bit of a survivor pool. And I do think it would be very interesting if we picked who we would be picking this week. Pat, I don't know if you were in the survivor pool at one point. Yeah, no.
He was, but yeah, no
But he got
longer.
knocked out.
Not this year.
Typical Pat. Okay,
Yeah.
so
I'm slacking on the Survivor game this year, man.
yeah, I'm having a great time with this season more than a lot of the others. 45, 46, and 47 hit really hard. I think 41 through 44 were kind of like the early 20s, like the dark ages of Survivor, but I think we're back. Like I think
42 was good. 42 was good.
42 was fine. 42 was the epitome of fine. But
But Johnny, also remember when we had you on and had you pick your pick for the Survivor pool, you decided to change it, and you were the only person who came on who decided to change it last minute. So
I'm a renegade, baby. I will probably change it
you'll
again.
probably change it again. All
But
right, so
tonight we're
we'll
gonna.
just give what we think we might end up selecting.
All right, you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Um, I'll go first.
All right.
Let's see. I am thinking that someone who definitely won't be voted out, but could possibly be in the near future is Gabe. So I'll probably lean towards Gabe. I don't think Gabe is about to be blindsided. If he is, well, but I think that Gabe is going to be a major threat in the upcoming few episodes and will eventually get blindsided, but I don't think with the numbers advantage he has right now that he would be the one to get blindsided. Unless Caroline decides to pull some crazy ass move, which I just don't think at this point in the game she would be willing to do it. So I'm thinking about picking Gabe this week.
I went first. I also believe I will be picking Gabe this week. I really do, swear to God.
Every time I say something first, you
A
always
few
end up
weeks
picking the same person.
a few weeks ago, I asked Steven, I said, "Who are you picking?" And he said, "Oh, I'm picking so and so." And I was like, "Great, I'm going to do that too." And I didn't know who I wanted to do, so I just kind of wanted to fuck with Steve.
Uh-huh.
No, I definitely don't. So the way I play these Survivor pools, which is how I won last year's Survivor pool, Survivor 46, I was the winner, by the way. I believe that the way to play them is just try to figure out who's going to be in the final six and pick anybody else. And if you're pretty close to accurate when the season's happening is who you think is going to be in the final six. You can, in theory, win the whole thing if you never pick those people. I do not think Gabe will make it that far. I you were mentioning earlier about like he's going to be like the new face of the Mount Rushmore, the new era. Like I don't see any of that happening. To be honest with you, I'm pretty sure the promo for 47 came out when they were on like day 11 of the
Yeah.
actual game. So I don't even think it is an accurate depiction of how his overall game will go. I don't I just think that when a blue gets shot at, especially one of the ones in power, it will probably be him. I think people are going to look at him and think he's a bit of a slime ball. And I just think he's going to go out soon, but there's no way he's going to go out next week because Caroline and Sue are going to protect him. And he will probably call the shot at who goes, and it will probably be the last time he's calling a shot this season because I just don't see how he is one of the people that will be protected into this mid-merge. So I'm probably definitively picking Gabe, actually. It was like a pick that was pretty easy for me. The other person I'm kind of considering is Kyle because I also think, but I kind of think that Kyle could be in the finale, so I don't really want to touch Kyle yet.
Really? I think
Yeah,
Kyle's going home either. Yeah, I think he's going home either soon or he's going to make it to the finale. I don't think he's going to be a middle boot.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he will probably be fine because of the thing that's happening between him and Sue. That if we really believe what we believe, that Sue has a chance of winning the whole season, and all this Kyle feuding with Sue stuff is being thrown into the show. It has to be thrown in for a reason, and I believe there's a chance that the both of them might be in the game a really long time together. Kind of like the Venus versus everybody actually. Like I think that that's just where I lean. That I think Kyle will be one of the last two. Tuku, is it Tuku? Is that the name of their tribe?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, one of the last two Tukus left. I think it'll be him and Sue. And I think Caroline will get taken out in a blind side. I think Gabe will get taken out in a final 10 or final 9 vote pretty seamlessly. And Kyle, I think, could get ingratiated pretty well, especially because he was a bit on the bottom of that second tribal council of the like when TK went home. So I just have faith that he could go deeper. He was one of the people I was considering picking. I don't think he'll go home tomorrow, but also in the off chance that he does, I'm gonna avoid him.
I think Caroline actually has one of the best chances on blue to win.
The show.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I think Caroline is not being edited crazy right now, but the bits and pieces that we do get of Caroline shows that she is playing a good game. For example, the whole confessional at the social hour saying like there's some people who play cornhole and there's some people who play Survivor. Um, and she's making good relationships with everyone on the other tribes. I don't think she'll be the person to be targeted from Blue, even if they go after the duo. I think it could be Sue getting targeted before Caroline. However, then I think the idol comes out and something crazy happens. Um, but I just see Caroline is I think in the best spot out of all of the blues in terms of relationships with the other tribes. And so unless she's seen as a big threat near the end, I think she's going to possibly make it to the end. It's all about if the jury respects her game at that point, and we'll find out if final six, final five, she can make a big move. I think she'll be able to make a big move then, and that's maybe when her edit becomes a lot more obvious. But I think she's playing more of an under the radar game, and I think they're trying to edit other players who might end up crashing and burning in the next few votes a little bit more as the strategic masterminds, maybe to make for the blind sides to be even better. Because the fact that the blind sides pre-merge were so good, I think Survivor is trying to edit it so that the blind sides are even better at the merge.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I think Genevieve probably doesn't make it to the end. I'm still going with the fact that Genevieve's going to be out soon. But that is kind of at this point in the season a bold prediction. But I have had that prediction ever since episode 2, and I'm going to stick with it until we see that she is truly in an amazing position. But I could definitely see Saul possibly turning on Genevieve in this next vote. What do you think, Pat? I want to know what you're thinking about this 3 versus 3 tribal council.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna stick to thinking that I honestly think it's gonna be Sam, and I think Andy's gonna join Teeny and Genevieve and Soul, and I think it's actually gonna land on Sam. I think that they're gonna show. They showed us a lot through the. I don't want to. Whether it was intentional or not, kind of Sam undermining Andy, and Andy's gonna kind of get the last laugh here. Kind of like Sam using him to keep him in the game. I think he wanted to have Andy as someone to. I think he just knew he could trust Andy maybe more and use Andy more than he could use someone like Annika, and I think that's actually going to come back and maybe bite him. So I do see a world where Andy kind of jumps ship, and joins the Reds and take out Sam, and he's the mayor of Ponderosa, like I said. I think his edit lately has been giving like, you know, first member of the jury vibes. So I
Yeah.
don't know. That's kind of
I,
where I'm at with that. I think it's gonna be. I actually think that the first tribal is gonna be a little bit like I know it's a 5-1 vote, and you think that that 3-3 second tribal, like assuming they go second, um, would be a little bit more complex. But I actually think the first one's gonna be a little bit more up in the air and a little bit more have us on the edge of our seats. I think it's gonna be pretty cut and dry that Andy's gonna want to join Teeny.
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's going to be interesting with the whole editing and jury aspect
And they showed us
because
Andy and Rachel like really early on, and maybe that's like a world where like you dump Sam, Sierra's out there kind of by herself, and you scoop, and now you have Teeny, you have Rachel, you have Saul, you have Jenna, you have like, and now you can go up against these. What if any of these blues are going to stay strong, or is Rachel going to go with these blues, right? So it's like
I do think I
there's a
do
lot of
think
different ways
that
it can go.
I do think that Andy Rachel thing from the premiere is going to swing its way back somehow in some poetic way. I don't know how, but I just see it happening.
yeah, that could be interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man.
I think that
That's
if they go to tribal first in the 3 versus 3 and they have to lose someone that's not going to be on the jury, then I think Sam will be safe based on just editing
okay.
purposes
Yeah.
because
I
Sam
definitely think the other
edited
tribe's gonna go
a lot.
first. I just have that. I don't know why Tiana just feels like the last preacher. It
Tiana
feels,
just really does feel like the last preacher. I really do think that Tiana will be the last preacher. I don't know. Yeah.
and I think that vote's gonna go go that way. I think I see a world where Kyle is even left out of that vote, and Kyle and Tiana are thinking that it's Rachel. So
Mhm. I also feel like if Andy's going to target someone on yellow, it would be Sam, but Sierra keeps getting such a smaller edit that I mean maybe it could be Sierra. I don't know. Maybe Sam wins immunity and then Andy still decides to turn on
yeah,
yellow and that's why
turn Sam
that
out of
they
it.
vote out Sierra. I could see that happening.
Yeah, I
I'm
can see that happening too.
I'm thinking that actually might be my prediction. If they go to tribal first, I think that Sierra might be the vote and Sam wins immunity. That's that's my prediction that Sierra goes home, um, or that Genevieve goes home. I think everyone else will be safe.
That's
And I
actually
think Saul does have the advantage, so I think Sierra is going home. Which sucks because Sierra has been my winner pick this entire season. But we'll
yeah.
see. We'll see what happens. Maybe she stays and maybe she can stay my winner pick.
Yeah, we'll find out tomorrow night.
Yeah. So this is this has been a great podcast. I'm so glad that I got to recap it with the one and only Pat Johnson, our co-host, finally coming back to recap with us, and the host of competitive events, Johnny Stockton, hopping on. This has been such a fun recap with you guys. Thank you guys so much for recapping with me.
Great to be back.
And yeah, any last things you guys would like to say?
No, man, just it's been a great season. Hopefully, it continues to be good. Hopefully, we see, two crazy tribals back to back would be super fun. So, looking forward to the next episode. Looking forward to seeing what you do with the rest of the season here on Tribal Lines Podcast, and hopefully for the finale, I may or may not make a another appearance. So it's been great, and I appreciate you letting me come back on. I still have the username and password, so I can come on whenever I want.
Yeah, 100%. Of course. Hopefully we can have you on more than just for the finale. But we'll
Back in
definitely
time.
check your schedule and we'll see if we can make it work.
Mhm.
Uh, and Johnny, yeah, thank you so much for hopping on with us.
Yeah, last time I came in with a lot of hate and hot takes about the season, so this time I wanted to, be a kind Survivor reviewer. But to be fair, I'm enjoying what I'm watching now more than what I was watching last time I was here, so that also changes the tone. But thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Wish I was funnier tonight, but I put the wrong pants on
Great.
down here, so what you gonna do?
You were awesome, Johnny.
Normally
Yeah.
do for humor, but didn't have much.
And really quick, right before we end this podcast for good, I did want to get Pat's winner pick because I know we got Johnny's, I know we got mine. What's your winner pick?
Well, mine changes by like every 5 hours when I'm thinking about the show or thinking about the season. Um, I've probably sent Johnny like 6 boot lists throughout the year, of just predictions. So I think honestly, after having this discussion with you gentlemen, um, hmm, honestly, it's tough. I think a woman wins. I was a big Sam truther for like a very long time, but I don't think he's gonna win. Honestly, I'm gonna go with Genevieve. I am gonna go with Genevieve.
Okay. All right, we got two Genevieves, we got one Sierra. Seems like the girls are taking over. Maybe
My
Teeny is
winner pick,
going to
my
get
winner
the
pick,
guys out.
my winner pick is not Genevieve. But
Oh,
that's
it's
all.
not. I thought it was. Who's your
No,
winner pick?
I think it's Andy.
Andy.
No, I do.
Oh, all right.
We'll see. We'll see. We'll see.
Okay, yeah. That would be awesome if Andy won. That would be
Would
great.
be
Dope.
great.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you guys again for hopping on for this recap, episode 6, and we will be back with you guys next time for episode 7 and to see what happens with this double tribal council. All right. See
For
you guys.
watching.
Peace.
Peace.